billionaire stood frozen when he saw a woman outside the restaurant where he was having lunch, standing beside two 7-year-old girls who looked exactly like his late wife, who had passed away 6 years ago. Before we begin the story, drop a comment below and share where you're watching from. Now, enjoy the story. The morning sunlight poured through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of Maxwell Thornton's corner office on the 52nd floor in Chicago's most high-end business district. At 45, Maxwell possessed nearly everything a man could dream of. Almost everything. "Mr. Thornton, your tenor appointment is waiting," Jessica, his always efficient assistant, said as she appeared in the doorway. Her worried eyes paused at the coffee on his desk, still untouched. It was his third cup that morning. "Give me 5 minutes," Maxwell replied, his voice firm with the same commanding tone that had built Thornton Enterprises into a real estate giant. He turned to face the city skyline, a view he had spent 20 years helping to build. His reflection stared back at him, dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, his salt and pepper hair giving him the distinguished look magazines often praised, and eyes that hadn't truly smiled in 7 years. Success had always stayed by his side, but happiness never returned. "Sir," Jessica spoke softly from the doorway, "don't forget the charity gala tonight. I've prepared everything." Maxwell gave a faint nod. These types of events were nothing more than empty formalities to him. Routine social checkboxes in his tightly organized life. Breakfast at 6:30, in the office by 8, non-stop meetings until 7, then dinner alone in his Lincoln Park mansion. "It's been 10 years today, hasn't it?" Jessica added gently. Maxwell's jaw clenched slightly. 10 years since he'd met Eleanor at a charity gala just like the one tonight. A decade since the lively research doctor with the sparkling eyes had stepped into his world and turned it upside down. And 7 years since the accident had taken her away. "Cancel the gala," he said abruptly. "Tell them I'll double my usual donation." That evening, as he drove home, he passed the university hospital where Eleanor had once worked. Maxwell rarely let himself dwell on the past, but tonight, the memories came flooding back. Eleanor, in a royal blue gown at that first gala, passionately challenging his views on healthcare development. Eleanor in the backyard of their home, pointing out where the oak trees should go. "For our grandkids to climb," she had said, smiling. Eleanor on their wedding day, glowing with joy. 3 years of pure happiness, before that rainy night shattered it all. The mansion was quiet when Maxwell stepped inside. Mrs. Peterson, the housekeeper, had left dinner in the warming oven as usual. He walked past it and headed upstairs to the east wing, the part of the house that hadn't been touched since Eleanor's passing. Her office was still exactly how she'd left it. Research documents stacked with care, her favorite fountain pen lying beside them, and family photos arranged neatly across her desk. He ran his fingers along the spines of her medical journals, the ache in his chest rising again. "I miss you," he whispered into the empty room. "Every single day." His phone rang, breaking the silence. It was Jessica, reminding him of tomorrow's investor meeting for the downtown development project, the massive urban renewal that had taken over his days. "Get some rest, Mr. Thornton," she reminded him. "The Anderson Group is flying in just to meet you." "I'll be ready," he replied. He gave her a reassuring nod, slipping back into the confident persona of Maxwell Thornton, the man who had everything, except the one thing that truly mattered. The lavish interior of the Linear restaurant was the ideal setting for Maxwell's business lunch with the Anderson Group executives. Sunlight streamed through the classy windows, lighting up the upscale dining area where Chicago's most powerful made multi-million-dollar deals over gourmet meals. "The downtown project will breathe new life into 10 city blocks," Maxwell explained, his voice filled with the smooth confidence that had helped him seal endless deals. "We're not just building properties, we're building a legacy." Richard Anderson gave an approving nod. But Maxwell's focus suddenly shifted. Across the restaurant's spotless glass front, a familiar outline on the sidewalk made his heart skip a beat. A woman with honey blonde hair tied in a messy bun stood with two young girls. Their clothes looked old and faded. Despite her worn look, her side profile was unmistakable. That same soft nose, that same elegant neckline, once he had memorized. During 7 years of sorrow. Eleanor, Maxwell whispered, just as his water glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the ground. Mr. Thornton, are you all right? Anderson's voice sounded distant, like an echo. But Maxwell was already on his feet, napkin falling, chair tipping behind him. He moved in a daze, weaving past tables and ignoring the maitre d's worried questions. His heart pounded hard against his chest as he pushed open the restaurant doors onto Michigan Avenue. The woman turned her head. Her eyes widened in what looked like recognition. And was that fear? Within seconds, she grabbed the girl's hands and started to run. Wait! Maxwell called out, pushing through the crowd. Please wait! Pedestrians clogged his path while the woman and her daughters turned a corner. Maxwell broke into a sprint, his pricey leather shoes hitting the pavement with sharp thuds. As he rounded the corner, he glimpsed them rushing into a nearby alley. The smaller girl glanced back, her face a perfect reflection of Eleanor's. Their eyes locked across the distance. And suddenly, the child ran back toward him. Lily, no! The woman cried, her voice piercing the air. Rougher, desperate, yet heartbreakingly familiar. It was Eleanor's voice. The little girl stopped in front of Maxwell, looking up at him with eyes just like his own. Daddy, she said with quiet certainty far beyond her age. She always said you'd find us. Maxwell dropped to his knees, his world spinning. At the alley's edge, the woman had stopped, frozen, holding the other child's hand. Eleanor, he whispered again, reaching out helplessly, as though he could span the 30 feet between them. She slowly shook her head, tears falling freely down her cheeks. Maxwell tried to stand, to go to her, but a wave of dizziness overtook him. The last image he saw before blacking out was Eleanor's terrified, gaunt face, yet alive, without a doubt. He woke up beneath the bright fluorescent lights of Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Dr. Williams, his physician for the past 10 years, stood by his bedside, concerned. You collapsed on Michigan Avenue, the doctor said, most likely a stress-related fainting spell. Your assistant is here. The woman, Maxwell murmured, struggling to sit up. The children? Dr. Williams exchanged a quick glance with the nurse. Mr. Thornton, eyewitnesses say you were alone when you fell. There was no woman, no children. That's not possible. Maxwell said firmly, the child's voice still echoing in his memory. I have to find them. Now. Below Chicago's gleaming skyline, a very different world existed. Under the Roosevelt Road viaduct, Amanda held her daughters close as the evening light faded over their makeshift shelter. We have to leave tonight, she whispered, her hands trembling as she packed their few possessions into a frayed backpack. He saw us. It's not safe anymore. 6-year-old Rose looked up at her mother, her sharp, knowing eyes far too mature for a child. He looked sad, Mama, not scary. It's the sad ones who are the most dangerous, Amanda replied, her voice laced with both education and fear, oddly refined for someone living this life. We've talked about this. Trust no one. Lily, Rose's identical twin, was neatly organizing their books with precision. He's the man from your pictures, she said flatly. The ones you cry over when you think we're asleep. Amanda froze, her face twisting with pain and longing. For a moment, she looked exactly like Eleanor Thornton, the brilliant medical researcher whose death made national headlines 7 years ago. Mama needs a moment, she said softly, stepping away to regain composure. The twins exchanged a glance. A silent bond beyond words. Rose gave a slight nod, and Lily arranged 3 small stones in a pattern only the two of them understood. We should gather food before we leave, Rose announced, her vocabulary unnaturally advanced. The abandoned garden in Burnham Park still has edible plants. Lily nodded. Taracum, Isanali, and Portulaca oleracea are in season, enough to last us 3 days. Amanda returned, visibly steadier. We'll catch the midnight bus to Milwaukee. I have just enough for tickets. She didn't mention it was the last of their emergency cash, hidden for years in her coat lining. As night settled, they crept toward a forgotten part of Burnham Park, where weeds had overrun an old community garden. The twins worked quickly and quietly, identifying plants most adults wouldn't recognize. Dandelion greens here, Rose whispered, carefully snipping the leaves. Plantain near the fence, Lily replied, not lifting her head. High in omega-3s. Amanda watched with pride and sorrow. Her daughters had never experienced a normal childhood. No schools, no friends, no home, only constant running, false names, and survival lessons disguised as games. Do you think he recognized you? Rose asked suddenly, still focused on her task. Amanda hesitated. Yes. Will he come looking? Lily asked quietly, the question hanging in the air. Maxwell never stops once he starts, Amanda said, her voice distant. It's why he succeeded, and why he's dangerous. Later, as they huddled beneath the viaduct, waiting for midnight, Lily suddenly reached for her sister's hand. Rose nodded, answering a silent question. Someone's coming. Oh, they both whispered at once. Amanda stiffened, pulling them deeper into shadow as footsteps neared. A police officer walked by, flashlight sweeping across the concrete. They held their breath. We have to go, Amanda whispered after he passed. They'll be looking for us now. The twins shared another silent message, their expressions older than their age. We know another place, Rose said. The church with the kind man. Lily added, the one who gave us bread last winter. Father Michael, they finished. Together, Amanda paused, then gave a soft nod. The Church of St. Catherine had once given them refuge in a cruel Chicago winter. The priest hadn't asked questions, only offered warmth and compassion. Just for tonight, she said quietly. Tomorrow, we vanish for good. The morning sun spilled across the cluttered office of Sarah Blackwood, located inside a converted warehouse on the city's west side. With a coffee cup in hand, she eyed the man sitting across from her, sharply dressed, clearly wealthy, and unmistakably desperate. Let me get this straight, Mr. Thornton, Sarah said, brushing her graying hair from her face. You believe your wife, the one who died 7 years ago, is alive and living on the streets with 2 children who you think are yours? Maxwell leaned in, his voice firm. I know how crazy it sounds. It sounds like grief is playing tricks on your mind. Sarah replied gently. 2 decades with the Chicago PD's Missing Persons Unit had taught her that grief could create illusions more powerful than reality. I'm not insane, Detective Blackwood. Former detective, she corrected. And I never said you were insane. I said grief is powerful. She studied the file Maxwell had brought. News articles about Eleanor Thornton's tragic accident, her glowing obituary, and photographs of a stunning woman with intelligent, smiling eyes. You were discharged from the hospital yesterday, Sarah said, reading. Doctors diagnosed stress-induced collapse. They recommended a psychiatric evaluation. I don't need a psychiatrist, Maxwell replied. I need someone who knows how to find people. Maxwell took out his phone and opened his banking app, holding it out to her. My retainer. Just name your price. Sarah's expression turned stern. I don't work for rich men who believe money can fix everything. Then work for a man, Maxwell replied, voice trembling. who saw the woman he buried 7 years ago and heard a little girl call him daddy. The look in his eyes made Sarah pause. It wasn't the look of a man deluded by grief, but one shattered by a truth too sharp to ignore. She'd seen that same expression in others. People who'd been hit with reality, not fantasy. "Tell me about the children," she finally said. 2 girls, identical twins, around 6 years old. Maxwell's hands quivered slightly. "Eleanor never told me she was pregnant." Sarah's instincts kicked in. The timeline. It could fit. If Eleanor had learned she was expecting shortly before the accident, or if the accident wasn't what it seemed. "I'll need access to everything," she decided aloud. "Medical files, accident reports, cremation records, all of it. Does this mean you'll help me?" Sarah stood and walked to the large window, gazing out at the city skyline. "It means I'll investigate. That's all I can promise right now." "Thank you," Maxwell said softly, the relief washing over him clear in his face. "Don't thank me yet," Sarah replied. "If your wife faked her death and stayed hidden for 7 years, you might not like what I uncover." 2 hours later, Sarah sat in her car outside Northwestern Memorial Hospital, reading through the medical records a kind nurse had provided. Something didn't add up. Eleanor Thornton's body had reportedly been brought in on March 17, 2018, the result of a single-car crash during a rainstorm on Lakeshore Drive. The attending doctor had declared her dead on arrival. The death certificate listed massive trauma as the cause. Yet the autopsy details were oddly brief. There were no full findings, just a signed confirmation from Dr. Raymond Chen, noting the identity and cause of death. The body was cremated within 48 hours, unusually fast for someone with Eleanor's social prominence. Sarah jotted a reminder to investigate Dr. Chen's background, then called an old contact at the medical examiner's office. "Mike, it's Sarah. I need a quick favor. Was Dr. Raymond Chen on staff in 2018? The response made her sit upright. "He left the country." "When exactly?" She scribbled quickly. "The day after Eleanor Thornton's cremation." "How convenient. Any idea where he went?" As the call ended, Sarah stared at Eleanor's photo. Beautiful, brilliant, accomplished. A renowned researcher in genetics. Married, believed dead at 35, or maybe not. "What were you running from, Eleanor?" She asked the photo softly. "And why did you let your husband think you were gone?" Meanwhile, Maxwell had turned his mansion's home theater into a full-blown investigation center. Photos of Eleanor blanketed the walls. Wedding shots, vacations, galas. In the center of it all, Maxwell stood frozen in front of a paused video. "Play it again," he said quietly. The screen lit up, showing Eleanor at their 3rd anniversary party, laughing as she sliced their cake. Maxwell studied each frame, searching her face for confirmation. "It's her," he said. "I'd bet my life on it." Sarah, standing nearby, remained neutral, her focus fixed on financial documents spread across the table. "These transfers," she pointed out. "Quarterly payments of $250,000 to Grand Cayman accounts. Did you approve these?" Maxwell examined the statements. Some of them are real, donations to research foundations Eleanor supported. But these others, he pointed to a few suspicious transactions. "I've never seen these before. They started 3 months before Eleanor's supposed death and continued for 2 years afterward. Your financial advisor didn't flag this. Edward Winters has handled my accounts for 15 years. He would never." Maxwell's words faltered. "Unless someone else told him to." "Like Eleanor?" Sarah suggested gently. Maxwell ran both hands through his hair, suddenly looking lost. If she needed funds to disappear, she could have accessed our accounts any time. "But why not tell me? Why let me grieve for her?" "Maybe she was afraid of you," Sarah said carefully. Maxwell flinched, real pain flickering across his face. I never gave her a reason to fear me. Never. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from her contact. Zhou Chen moved to Switzerland. Got a sudden job offer. Still there according to LinkedIn. Switzerland. Maxwell repeated, something clicking in his memory. Eleanor consulted for a Swiss lab the year before she disappeared. The Reinhardt Institute. She went there 3 times. Sarah jotted the name. I'll dig into them. As Sarah stepped out to follow that lead, Maxwell walked toward Eleanor's preserved office. Pulled by instinct, everything had been left exactly as it was. Her books, her notes, even the French hand lotion she favored. He traced the books on her shelf, stopping at one, Advances in Genetic Therapy. Eleanor had co-authored a chapter. When he pulled it out, something fell behind the shelf. A small USB drive. Maxwell stared at it, heart thudding. Had it always been there? Had he overlooked it for 7 years? The drive was password protected. He tried their anniversary. Denied. Her birthday. Denied. His birthday. Denied. He closed his eyes, thinking of her habits. She never used random codes, only personal ones from their life together. Where we first met. He typed, denied. Our wedding song, also denied. Then, he remembered a moment from their honeymoon. Eleanor had spoken about her childhood home in Minnesota, and the willow tree where she built a tree house. She'd painted the door blue, her grandfather's favorite color. Maxwell typed, blue willow tree. The drive unlocked. A single folder appeared, dated 7 years ago, today. Inside, one video file, one text document, labeled, if you're reading this. With shaking hands, Maxwell opened the video. Eleanor appeared on screen, her face serious. She wore the same clothes as the morning of her accident. Maxwell, if you're watching this, then something has happened. Or rather, something has made me take drastic steps. I hope one day you'll understand why I couldn't tell you everything. They're watching. Always watching. She glanced nervously over her shoulder. Fear etched in her face. The Reinhardt Institute. It's not what it claims to be. Victoria's project. The video ended abruptly. Maxwell opened the text file. His world tilted. If I survive, I'll reach out, using our signal. If not, this is goodbye. Far away, the glass-walled office of Dr. Victoria Reinhardt overlooked the Swiss Alps. A view celebrated in countless medical magazines that hailed her as a leader in genetic science. At 58, Victoria Reinhardt had the poise of a woman used to controlling everything around her. Our investors are getting impatient, Dr. Reinhardt. Her CFO said, sliding reports across her desk. They expected Project Genesis to deliver results by now. Victoria tapped her manicured fingers on the glass desk, eyes on the snow-capped peaks. Outside. Science can't be rushed, Mr. Keller, especially when you're rewriting human genetics. Her intercom buzzed. Dr. Reinhardt, secure call on line 3. She dismissed the CFO, activated full security, electromagnetic shielding, signal jammers, white noise generators, and picked up the line. This is Reinhardt. The voice on the other end was tense. We've got a situation in Chicago. Subject E7 has been exposed. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Impossible. Eleanor Thornton is dead. City surveillance confirmed it, Doctor. She was seen with the twins, near Michigan Avenue. Maxwell Thornton saw them. The air in the room grew cold. The twins were with her. In public? Yes, Doctor. And one of them approached him. Victoria's hand clenched around a crystal paperweight, the only sign of her fury. This is unacceptable. They were never supposed to contact their biological father. Their DNA modifications are too valuable to be exposed. She turned to 3 massive monitors displaying live data from various test sites. E7 and her children had been her greatest achievement until Eleanor uncovered the truth and ran. Begin containment protocol, she ordered. I want them found and secured in 24 hours. And Maxwell Thornton. Victoria paused. He was rich, connected, and now aware. A dangerous combination. Keep him distracted, hit his finances, stir up legal. Trouble with his real estate project. If that doesn't work, her eyes hardened. Use more permanent measures. Then she opened a secure server, a bank of video files labeled E7 monitoring. Initial video clips showed Eleanor Thornton in a white lab coat, full of excitement about joining the Reinhardt Institute as a consultant. In later recordings, her suspicion began to grow as she slowly uncovered pieces of a hidden initiative. Project Genesis. The final footage captured Eleanor's horror when she learned the truth. Her own pregnancy had been altered. The twin embryos she carried had been genetically engineered, without her knowledge or permission. Victoria fast-forwarded through years of surveillance footage. Eleanor disguised, constantly relocating. The twins developing abilities far beyond even Victoria's boldest expectations. Rapid healing, heightened intelligence, and most intriguingly, an unspoken form of communication between them. All of it represented advances that could transform. The future of human evolution. 7 years in hiding, Victoria murmured. Impressive, Eleanor, but pointless. She opened a drawer and pulled out a file labeled Maxwell Thornton. His financial data showed hidden transfers. Unknowingly, funding Project Genesis through offshore companies. His psychological report outlined a sharp mind, strong will, and deep emotional damage caused by Eleanor's supposed death. Victoria closed the file and made her decision. Prepare my jet. She ordered her assistant via intercom. I'm flying to Chicago. In the nearby lab, scientists in clean white coats monitored children with similar traits to the twins. The next wave of Project Genesis. Unlike Eleanor's girls, these children had never tasted freedom. Their genetic codes, like their futures, belonged to Victoria Reinhardt. We're so close, she whispered, watching one child rapidly recover from a fresh surgical wound. Eleanor cannot be allowed to ruin this now. St. Catherine's Church sat quietly within the noise of Chicago. Its old stone exterior, a haven for the forgotten. Father Michael O'Connor was locking up after evening prayers when he noticed movement near the side entrance. A faint voice called out, "We need help." He turned and saw a pale, thin woman with 2 young girls beside her. Their faces partially covered by worn hoodies. Recognition hit him hard. "My God! Amanda." The woman corrected sharply, glancing behind her nervously. "Please, Father, just for one night." Without hesitation, Father Michael opened the rectory door. Under the hallway light, he was struck by how much she had changed. This woman he'd once known as Dr. Eleanor Thornton, his favorite volunteer, his moral compass. Her face was hollow, her once bright eyes constantly scanning. "The basement. Apartment has its own entrance," he said softly, leading them down a narrow staircase. "No one will look for you here." The twins followed in perfect sync, exactly 3 steps behind their mother. Their faces were identical and far too serious for their age. "When did you last eat?" he asked gently. "Yesterday morning," the girls replied together. While the priest warmed up a simple dinner, Amanda moved nervously around the small basement, checking every window and possible exit. The girls remained completely still at the table, identical posture, silent. "Maxwell found us," Amanda suddenly blurted. "He saw us on Michigan Avenue." Father Michael froze. "Your husband's been a shattered man ever since your death." "Eleanor died in that crash," Amanda corrected quickly. "She had to." "Did she?" the priest asked, his voice calm. "Or did she run from something?" Before she could answer, the twins turned toward the door at the same time. "Someone's coming," they said in perfect unison. Across the city, Maxwell sat frozen, still staring at the USB drive and the contents Eleanor had left behind. Her warning about the Reinhardt Institute haunted him. A knock pulled him from his thoughts. His security team let in a man Maxwell hadn't seen in years, Dr. Thomas Wells, Eleanor's old research partner, their best man. "I came as soon as I heard you were looking into Eleanor's work," Thomas said, declining a drink. "There's something you need to know. She's alive," Maxwell stated without hesitation. "I saw her yesterday." Instead of surprise, Thomas looked grim, almost relieved. "Then we have less time than I feared." "You knew?" Maxwell asked, his legs suddenly weak. "I helped her vanish," Thomas admitted. "It was the only way to keep her and the children safe." "Children?" Maxwell repeated, the word hitting like a punch. "The twins. They're mine?" Thomas nodded solemnly. "Yes, biologically. But there's more to it. Elsewhere, Sarah Blackwood sat at her kitchen table. Maxwell's financial records spread before her. Something was wrong. The transfers to the Cayman Islands were expertly layered. The kind of laundering professionals would envy. A knock made her reach instinctively for the gun she'd kept since her detective days. Peeking through the door, she saw a woman in scrubs. "Jennifer Harris," the woman said. "I was Eleanor Thornton's nurse. Dr. Wells said you might help." Sarah opened the door cautiously. "Help with what?" "The night Eleanor was said to have died," Jennifer whispered, visibly nervous. "I was working that shift. The woman they brought in wasn't her." The medical examiner knew too. But someone paid him to lie. Sarah's instincts flared red. "Come in. Tell me everything." Back at the church, as Father Michael arranged bedding, the twins sat cross-legged on the floor, fingertips lightly touching. "The doctor man found Daddy," Lily whispered. "The nurse lady found the detective," Rose added. "They're all coming together." They finished together. Amanda watched her daughters with awe and fear. Their connection, their awareness of things beyond sight, was growing stronger. Just one more secret she'd tried so hard to keep hidden. Meanwhile, Maxwell's hands trembled as he inserted the USB into a secure laptop that Thomas had brought. They locked the room and swept it for bugs. Thomas's idea. Eleanor found something at Reinhardt that terrified her. Thomas began, his voice low, something that made her give up everything. The drive held dozens of encrypted documents, genetic sequencing, clinical notes, protocols titled under Project Genesis. One folder stood out, Twin Study Observations. Maxwell clicked play. 2 infant girls lay in cribs, monitored by machines. As one began crying, the other reacted instantly, even though they couldn't see or hear each other. When a nurse pricked one baby's heel for a test, both showed pain. Identical twins can be close, Thomas said, but this was different. Reinhardt's team separated them to study their shared neural patterns. Maxwell fast-forwarded through the footage. Months of tests. "These are my daughters," he whispered. Thomas nodded. Born 6 months after Eleanor's accident, she was already pregnant when she learned what Victoria had done. What exactly did she do? Maxwell asked, his voice cold. Eleanor had joined for research into healing. She didn't know the fertility treatments she received were part of the trial, or that the embryos had been altered. Maxwell turned pale. Altered? How? Thomas paused. The twins heal abnormally fast. Scrapes vanish in hours. Broken bones, days. They're able to communicate without speaking, feel what the other feels, even from far apart. They're experiments, Maxwell said, horrified. My children were turned into experiments, and incredibly valuable ones, Thomas added. Victoria thinks they're humanity's next evolution. Eleanor found files on other children too, each genetically enhanced. Maxwell turned. to the document Eleanor had written. Now, he read every word. If I survive, I'll contact you with our signal. If not, this is goodbye. Maxwell, Victoria Reinhardt manipulated my pregnancy. Our daughters carry modifications I never agreed to. When I confronted her, I found money trails connecting your company. I didn't know if you were involved or just another victim. If it's the latter, I forgive you. I've hidden resources in safe houses using the training your security team gave me. If I'm gone, please protect our girls. Don't let them be taken. The location below leads to proof. I couldn't keep it here. Remember our stargazing night in Michigan. That's the key. I had no part in this, Maxwell said, tears threatening. How could she think I'd ever allow this? A voice from the doorway broke the silence. Sarah, with Jennifer beside her. Because someone made sure it looked like you did. Sarah dropped the financial records onto the desk. These transactions, to Reinhardt-linked shell companies, started before Eleanor even knew she was pregnant. It had been done with such precision, even she hadn't noticed. My CFO, Maxwell muttered, realization dawning. Edward. He was Victoria's insider. Jennifer stepped forward. That night, they brought in a Jane Doe who looked just enough like Eleanor. She had already escaped with Dr. Chen's help. He arranged the cremation, Sarah added grimly, to erase all traces, then fled to Switzerland, where he mysteriously died 3 months later. Maxwell's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Your house is under surveillance. Leave now. Bring the drive. FB. He frowned. FB? Father Brian? Thomas guessed. No, Father Michael. Eleanor corrected. From St. Catherine's. I used to volunteer there. Just then, Maxwell's home security alarm chimed. His perimeter alert was triggered. The camera feed showed black SUVs pulling into the driveway. Victoria's team, Thomas whispered. They're moving quickly. Sarah checked her handgun. We don't have time. We go now. Maxwell snatched the USB drive and a photo of Eleanor. The coordinates from her message. What do they lead to? He asked. Thomas pulled up the data. An old industrial site in Pullman. Your company purchased it 5 years ago. Maxwell's eyes widened. She hid the evidence. On property I already own. They slipped out through a rear service door. Maxwell's wounded security chief intercepted them, blood trickling from a gash on his head. Mr. Thornton, he gasped. Armed men breached the east gate, claiming they're federal, but their IDs are fake. Head for the garage. Maxwell ordered. We're going dark. Meanwhile, at St. Catherine's, evening mass had just concluded. Amanda stood by the altar when she noticed them. Men in dark suits blending into the dispersing crowd. But their sharp eyes and scanning behavior gave them away. They've found us, she whispered to Father Michael. The twins were hidden downstairs in the rectory basement. Safe for now. The priest followed her gaze. The sacristy side exit. My car's behind the rectory. We can't involve you any further, Amanda protested. Eleanor, Father Michael said firmly, dropping the disguise. You came to me 7 years ago, after what they did to your children. I won't turn away now. As they moved toward the sacristy, Amanda froze. 2 more agents had emerged near the exit, speaking into concealed earpieces. They've surrounded us, she whispered, dread rising. Father Michael's face hardened. Resolve overtaking worry. The catacombs. The what? This church was built in 1887, with tunnels connecting to the old freight system beneath the city. Back during Prohibition, they used them to transport alcohol. He stepped into the confessional and triggered a hidden mechanism, revealing a narrow stairwell. Almost no one knows they exist. Amanda rushed to retrieve the twins, but they were already at the top of the rectory stairs. Backpacks, in hand. Men in suits, Lily said plainly. They're armed, Rose added. 8 total. They finished in sync. Amanda didn't ask how they knew. She just grabbed their hands and followed Father Michael into the darkness beneath. The church. Back across town, Sarah Blackwood's apartment door burst inward as armed tactical units stormed inside. But she was already long gone. She'd spotted the surveillance van across the street 20 minutes earlier. Her years in law enforcement made her quick to recognize a setup. She'd slipped out through the building's back exit, taking only her gun, phone, and the Eleanor Thornton case file. Now, crouched behind a dumpster in an alley, she watched the team scour her place. Professional muscle, she muttered. Definitely not cops. Her phone vibrated. A message from Thomas. Maxwell's house compromised. Heading to Pullman site. Meet there if you can. She deleted the message and moved through side streets toward the nearest train station. Whoever was trying to shut them down had real power, which meant the truth was close. In Maxwell's private garage, a fleet of expensive cars gleamed, but all were easily traceable. So instead, they took the security chief's personal sedan, a plain Ford with tinted windows. Stick to back roads. Thomas instructed as Maxwell drove. They'll be watching the traffic cams. Jennifer sat stiffly in the back. I never should have gotten involved. They'll trace my hospital login. Figure out I accessed Eleanor's records. You did the right thing, Maxwell told her, steering through industrial zones with minimal surveillance. Without you, we might never have connected the dots. Thomas checked his phone. Sarah's apartment was raided. She escaped, headed to Pullman. And Eleanor? Maxwell asked, her name still strange on his lips after all this time. No word yet from Father Michael as they neared the Pullman district, once a booming railroad hub, now partially abandoned and partially owned by Maxwell's firm. An unmarked police cruiser tailed them. We've got company, Maxwell warned, gripping the wheel tighter. Turn left, Thomas said calmly. There's a back way in, through the rail yard. Flashing lights lit up behind them. Maxwell floored the gas, skidding around a corner onto cracked pavement that had once been a loading dock. There! Thomas pointed. A break in the fence surrounded a massive brick building, the admin headquarters of Maxwell's redevelopment project. Maxwell drove straight through, the fence collapsing behind them. They ditched the car and rushed inside, navigating by the dim glow of emergency lighting in the partially restored structure. We need to get to the basement archives, Maxwell said, winded. That's where Eleanor would have hidden anything important. Suddenly, a beam of light cut through the dark. Maxwell! A soft voice called out. From the shadows stepped Amanda, the twins at her side, Father Michael behind them. They had entered through a maintenance door. Time stopped. Maxwell stared at the woman he'd mourned for 7 years. Thinner, tougher, her hair now dyed brown, but unmistakably Eleanor. You found us, she whispered, voice cracking. The twins looked at Maxwell, identical faces, identical solemnity. Their eyes, his eyes, studied him with eerie perception. They're here, they said together. Both sides of the building, 12 men total. How do they? Jennifer began. Later, Father Michael cut her off. To the basement, now. The air in the Pullman administration building basement was thick with dust and history. Emergency generators provided faint lighting as the group descended the maintenance stairwell. The archives should be ahead, Maxwell said, weaving past old tools and debris. He reached a large steel door and swiped his keycard. It opened into a climate-controlled room filled with blueprints and records from the building's railroad past. Amanda, Eleanor, kept the twins close. Her posture was still guarded, even around Maxwell. We don't have much time, she said. Victoria's team is thorough. They think you're dead, Maxwell said softly. I thought you were dead. Eleanor's expression softened, just slightly. I had no choice, Maxwell. There's always a choice, he replied, pain surfacing. You could have told me. Not when I found out you were funding Victoria's research. She snapped back. Maxwell flinched as if struck. I never. The financial trails. Thomas interrupted. We've confirmed. Your CFO, Edward Winters, said it all. Up, Victoria placed him inside your company long before you met Eleanor. She planned every detail. Eleanor said, her tone gentler now. Before we ever crossed paths, Father Michael stood watch near the door while Sarah scanned the room. Whatever you stored here, Eleanor. We need it now. She nodded and moved to a row of antique blueprints. Help me shift this. Behind the cabinet was a wall safe, hidden by architectural plans. Eleanor entered a code. Maxwell recognized it instantly. Their anniversary. The safe opened, revealing a single external hard drive and a sealed medical container. This is everything I gathered on Project Genesis. Eleanor said. Research, files, subject data, genetic blueprints, and this. She pointed to the container. Blood and tissue samples from the twins, showing the genetic edits. Thomas studied the vial. This is what Victoria fears most. Concrete proof of illegal genetic testing. Suddenly, the twins turned sharply toward the stairwell. They're inside the building, they said in unison. Sarah raised her gun. We need a way out. Now. The old freight tunnels, Father Michael said. They run beneath the entire district, connect to the river. Jennifer blinked. How do you know that? I grew up in Pullman. The priest replied. We used to explore them as kids. Most are sealed, but there should be one open in the boiler room. Maxwell nodded. It's marked on the renovation plans. 2 floors down. Eleanor zipped the drive and samples into her backpack. She turned to Maxwell. It's time you knew the full truth, she said. Why I disappeared. What Victoria did to our daughters. As they moved further into the building's sublevels, Eleanor finally shared everything. I was brought on as a consultant for Reinhardt's regenerative medicine project. It sounded groundbreaking. Treatments to speed up healing, prolong life, maybe even cure diseases once thought untreatable. They reached a massive chamber that once held industrial boilers, now half dismantled for reconstruction. When I found out I was pregnant, Victoria offered me prenatal care through the institute. I didn't suspect a thing. Eleanor's voice cracked. By the time I realized what she'd done, the alterations to the embryos couldn't be undone. Oh, what did she do exactly? Maxwell asked, watching the twins as they carefully scanned the room's perimeter, mirroring each other's movements flawlessly. CRISPR-based gene editing, Eleanor said, but using proprietary methods far more advanced than anything publicly known. She activated genes related to cellular healing, brain plasticity, and she hesitated. Extrasensory awareness. You mean they can read minds? Sarah asked, skeptical. Not quite, Eleanor replied. They're connected, neurologically. They feel each other's emotions, see what the other sees. But it's evolving beyond that. They pick up on intent, deception, things science hasn't defined yet. They're the prototype Victoria wants to mass produce. Thomas added grimly, Human 2.0, but under her control. The tunnel should start here, Father Michael said, inspecting a bricked-over archway. As Maxwell helped shift debris from the opening, Eleanor continued. When I confronted Victoria, she showed me the other children, enhanced strength, sharpened intelligence. But they weren't treated like kids, just specimens. Her voice turned steel cold. That's when I knew I had to vanish, with the girls. Why not tell me? Maxwell asked, the question that had haunted him for 7 long years. Eleanor looked him directly in the eyes. Because all the financial evidence pointed to you. Victoria made it look like you'd approved everything. The old freight tunnel opened ahead, like a forgotten artery from another era. Its damp brick-lined walls shimmered in the dim light. Rusty tracks still clung to the concrete. Father Michael led with a flashlight, relying on childhood memories of the passage. "We should be nearing the river," he whispered. "There's an old harbor exit that was never sealed." Maxwell walked beside Eleanor, the twins between them, a portrait of a family that might have been but never had the chance. 7 years of silence and suspicion hung in the air. The only sounds were distant footsteps echoing from the tunnels behind them. "You could have asked questions," Eleanor said quietly. "Instead of accepting, I was gone." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "I hired 3 investigators. All gave me the same answers. Death certificate, cremation, witnesses. All of it forged. I know that now." Eleanor glanced sideways, surprised. "I never stopped looking," he said. "But Victoria always stayed ahead, giving me just enough fake closure to stop me from digging deeper." Behind them, Thomas and Sarah kept alert. Jennifer carefully cleaned a cut on Father Michael's hand from earlier. "Victoria's resources are immense," Thomas explained. "She's got corporate ties, government contracts, and wealthy backers, all thinking they're funding the next medical revolution." "They are," Eleanor said softly, looking at her girls. "Just not in the way they imagine." The twins moved fluidly, fingertips brushing the damp tunnel walls, as if reading the history locked within them. "The men upstairs have split into 3 teams," Lily announced suddenly. "They're trying to trap us," Rose added. "They'll reach the harbor exit in 7 minutes," they concluded together. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That's creepy, but helpful." Maxwell's instincts kicked in as he watched his daughters. Remarkable, gifted, and still strangers to him. They reached a fork in the tunnel, 3 paths ahead. Father Michael paused. "I don't remember this divide." "Left," the twins said together. When the others hesitated, they pointed to faded symbols carved into the brick, ancient utility markings from decades ago. As they walked, Maxwell turned to Sarah. "What did you find in my financial history?" "Your CFO set up an elaborate laundering scheme," she said. "The funds were channeled through shell corporations, straight into Reinhardt's black projects. On paper, it looked like you personally approved everything. Edward's been with me from the start," Maxwell said, voice colored with disbelief. "Then Victoria planted him long ago." Sarah replied, "Maybe even before you met Eleanor." "She never leaves connections to chance," Thomas added. They entered a maintenance room where the tunnel met newer utilities. They paused there, voices hushed. "We need more than just an escape route," Sarah said. "Victoria won't stop hunting you, any of you." "The drive is our leverage," Eleanor replied, tapping her backpack. "Project Genesis breaks every law and moral code in medical science." "But evidence alone isn't enough," Maxwell said. "She's connected. In media, government, medicine. Who do we even trust?" A silence fell as that harsh truth set in. "We'll need more than proof," Thomas finally said. "We'll need allies, funding, a plan." Maxwell looked at Eleanor, then at the girls. 7 years of pain were hardening into resolve. "I've got resources, a network, everything I built, the same system Victoria hijacked, we can use. It against her. She used you," Eleanor reminded him, "without you even realizing." "Then I'll expose her," Maxwell replied, "starting with everyone in my company who has ties to her." The twins stepped forward, faces completely serious. "We can help," Lily offered. "We can sense lies," Rose added. "We've been practicing," they said in sync. Eleanor's expression was a mix of pride and worry. "Their abilities grow stronger every year," she said. "That's why Victoria wants them. To study, control, replicate. But they're not lab experiments," Maxwell said, kneeling before them. "They're children. My children. I missed 6 years of your lives," he added, emotion thick in his voice. I'll never get that time back. But I promise you this, Victoria will never touch you again. The girls exchanged a glance, then smiled, identical, radiant. For the first time, something new flickered between them and their father. Trust. Fragile, but real. Harbor exit ahead. Father Michael whispered, I hear the river. The forgotten harbor door opened onto a platform above the Chicago River. Dawn was breaking, golden light splashing across the skyline as they stepped into the open air. We can't go back to any safe house or known spot, Sarah said, scanning the surroundings. Victoria has eyes everywhere. I've got a place, Maxwell offered. A warehouse in the West Loop, registered under a shell company, used for art storage. Thomas raised a brow. Art? Eleanor always said, I needed hobbies outside of work. Maxwell replied, faintly smiling. After I lost her, I started collecting. Eleanor's expression softened, briefly, then hardened again. We need untraceable transport, she said. I've got someone, Sarah replied, calling a contact from a burner phone. 20 minutes. While they waited beneath the shadow of an old grain silo, Maxwell watched the twins along the water's edge, gathering stones, examining their textures like young scientists. They're amazing, he said softly to Eleanor. They're also in danger, she answered. They always will be, as long as Victoria believes they're hers. Thomas joined them, keeping his voice low. We need a clear picture of what we're facing. Victoria's network goes beyond Reinhardt Institute. I've been moving for years to stay ahead, Eleanor replied. She's got labs in Switzerland, Singapore, a remote site in Chile, and one up in northern Canada. Multiple secret facilities. Thomas nodded. Each one focused on different forms of genetic modification. Sarah returned, having locked in their ride. How many kids are we talking about? She asked. Dozens, Eleanor answered. Some born through surrogates. Others, like me, who had no idea their pregnancies were manipulated. That kind of funding would cost billions. Sarah murmured. Maxwell studied the diagrams closely. That's where you come in, Thomas said. Sarah and I spent all night going through your company's financial systems. Victoria hasn't just been using Thornton Enterprises as funding. She's been using it to clean the money for the entire operation. Maxwell's expression turned cold. Show me. Thomas handed him a tablet filled with intricate financial charts. Your CFO, Edward Winters, set up a shadow financial system inside your business. Legitimate projects act as a front to move funds from Victoria's global backers through your books, disguising the money before it reaches her labs. Maxwell scanned the complex flowcharts. That explains those irregularities I never could figure out, he muttered. Edward always had convincing answers. He's been working for Victoria since the start, Eleanor confirmed. She was already placing her people before you and I ever met. Sarah pointed to a pattern in the data. The volume of the transfers suggests more than just private investors. Some of these look like black budget funds, likely for military purposes. Victoria promises different outcomes to different groups, Eleanor explained. Immortality to billionaires, super soldiers to defense, disease immunity to global health groups. But really, she's focused on something far bigger, reshaping what it means to be human. A dented van rumbled up the access road. Sarah motioned to the group. Our ride. As they boarded, the twins suddenly stopped, eyes distant. Other children, Lily murmured. Like us, but not the same. Rose added. They're afraid. They finished together. Eleanor knelt down. What do you see? The girls closed their eyes. Their breathing synced instantly. White rooms, Lily whispered. Tests every day, said Rose. Some run faster than light. Some never sleep. Some remember everything. Singapore, Switzerland, Chile. Canada. They know about us. They're watching and waiting. Eleanor turned to the others, visibly pale. The twins' connection to the others, it's growing. It's as if they're sinking across continents. Is that even possible? Sarah asked. Thomas nodded slowly. We're well past normal science now. Victoria altered their brains in ways no one fully understands. They're not just case studies, Maxwell said, his voice low with anger. They're children, trapped and terrified. As the van drove toward Maxwell's West Loop warehouse, he made up his mind. We can't just save ourselves. We have to bring down all of this. For every child she's taken. Eleanor nodded, the walls between them beginning to crack. I have enough evidence to prove the illegal experiments, but Victoria's reach is wide. She'll bury anything we expose through standard channels. Then we don't go through them, Maxwell said. We use her own empire against her. From the outside, Maxwell's warehouse looked like a secure industrial building. Bare brick, no signage, no windows, reinforced loading bays. But inside, it was a different world. One area stored his private art collection. Another was a hidden living space, complete with encrypted comms, backup power, and a war room. I built this after I thought Eleanor was gone, Maxwell said as the group entered. Somewhere private, safe, where I could work or hide. Smart move, Sarah remarked. The next 2 days blurred together. Sleep was rare. Thomas and Jennifer sorted through Eleanor's drive, compiling documentation of medical abuse, violations of global ethics codes. Sarah contacted trusted allies within law enforcement, specifically the FBI and Interpol. Father, Michael stayed close to the twins, offering comfort as their mental link to other test subjects deepened. Maxwell handled the financial side, tracking every dollar that flowed into Project Genesis. Victoria is giving a keynote speech at the Biotech Summit tomorrow, he announced. McCormick Place. She'll present her latest breakthrough to global investors. She's about to go public, Eleanor said, scrolling through the event agenda. Rebranding her research, hiding the truth. Perfect, Maxwell replied. The world's attention will be on her. The plan was set. Maxwell would confront Victoria on stage during her speech. At the same time, Sarah would guide federal agents to Reinhardt sites, using coordinates from Eleanor's intel. Thomas and Jennifer would send the medical files to regulators and select journalists, and Father Michael would lead Eleanor and the twins to a secret safe house. She'll have private security, Sarah warned. Likely trained ex-military. I'm counting on that, Maxwell said. We need her fully distracted. Eleanor approached him gently. This plan, it puts you in danger. I've lived in danger, he said quietly. Ever since I lost you. I just didn't know it. The moment lingered, tender, unsure, before the twins interrupted. We want to help, they said together. The other children are waiting, Lily added. They're ready to resist. Rose followed. Eleanor knelt. You can't go to the summit. We don't have to, they replied in eerie unison. McCormick Place was alive with buzz. The International Biotech Expo had turned it into a wonderland of futuristic science. Victoria Reinhardt arrived with grace and guards, her sleek suit and practiced poise presenting her as a pioneer, not a monster. Maxwell entered quietly, using his real estate status to secure VIP access. Sarah and Thomas took up strategic positions, communicating through secure channels. Teams on 3 continents waiting for a single cue. Victoria stepped up to applause. Her visuals displayed the public face of the Reinhardt Institute. Today marks a milestone, she began. Regenerative treatments that accelerate healing, improve life expectancy, and eventually halt aging itself. From his 3rd row seat, Maxwell stared at her. The woman responsible for years of deception, She smiled confidently as she clicked through slides. This technology goes far beyond health. She continued. Soldiers who recover in days. First responders immune to poisons. Children born free of disease. Maxwell stood. Victoria paused, then recovered with poise. Mr. Maxwell Thornton, she said smoothly. Chicago's own. Interested in investing? I'm interested in Project Genesis, Maxwell replied. The kids locked in labs in Chile, Canada, Singapore, Switzerland, the ones you experimented on, including my daughters. Security advanced as murmurs filled the room. This man is not well, Victoria said, calm but firm. Please remove him. Tell them about Eleanor Thornton, Maxwell pressed as guards closed in. How you changed her pregnancy, forced her to disappear, lied to me. Victoria's tone shifted. Mr. Thornton suffered delusions after his wife's death. It's a heartbreaking tragedy. Suddenly, the screen behind her flickered. Footage from inside Reinhardt's own facilities appeared. Children undergoing procedures, genetic charts, confidential logs, bank transfers, all tied to Victoria. What is this? She snapped, looking offstage at panicking staff. Around the globe, authorities began storming Reinhardt locations. Back in the warehouse, Eleanor sat beside the twins, their hands linked and eyes closed, in concentration. They're helping, she whispered to Father Michael, showing the others how to unlock the doors. The downfall of Reinhardt didn't come as one explosion, but a chain reaction. 3 weeks later, Maxwell sat in a quiet lakeside cabin in northern Michigan. Eleanor sat nearby, reviewing news headlines on a tablet, adjusting to life under her real name once again. The director of the Singapore lab is cooperating, she noted, trading information for immunity. Maxwell nodded, still digesting the scale of what had happened. The Swiss government took custody of 17 children. They're tracking down their families now. Outside, the twins played along the water. They looked like normal 6-year-olds until they'd suddenly stop, in sync, sensing something distant. They're still linked to the others, Eleanor said softly. It's fading, but they describe it like a choir that's slowly going quiet. That afternoon, Sarah arrived with updates from Chicago. They gathered around the wooden table as she opened her files. Victoria's lawyers are already spinning, she reported. They claim everything was above board. That rogue staff were responsible for the worst abuses. Typical, Thomas muttered. The powerful rarely face justice. Some labs are still open, Sarah said. Especially those with government ties. They're rebranding, destroying any evidence they missed. Father Michael, bringing lunch from the kitchen, joined the group. The children are the priority now, he said. They face medical complications, psychological trauma, and identity questions. Many are in legal limbo, Jennifer added. No one knows how to classify them. Are they victims, test subjects, or something entirely new under the law? Maxwell listened quietly to the sobering reality of their partial success. The exposure of Project Genesis had not brought the clean ending they'd hoped for. Instead, it revealed the tangled depth of an operation intertwined with real science, private capital, and government support. We won the battle, not the war, he admitted. Victoria's empire is damaged, but far from defeated. That's why we need the foundation, Eleanor said with quiet determination. A legitimate organization with the means to protect these children, fund ethical research on their conditions, and create safe spaces for them to grow. The Eleanor Thornton Foundation had begun as a concept during the planning stages. Now, backed by Maxwell's vast resources, it was becoming real, though not without challenges. The scientific community is split, Thomas reported. Some view these kids as tragic victims of unethical science. Others as valuable assets who could push medicine forward by decades. They're children first, Eleanor said firmly. Their well-being must come before anyone's curiosity. That Evening. Maxwell found Eleanor on the dock, watching the twins study a turtle family they'd found near the shore. Eyes wide with scientific interest. "I've lived in fear for so long," she said as he joined her. "Running, hiding, keeping them from becoming data points in Victoria's vision of the future." "You don't have to hide anymore," Maxwell said softly. She turned toward him, eyes weary from 7 years of hardship. "Do you think we can truly start again? After everything? After the doubt?" "We begin with the truth," Maxwell replied. "All of it. Even the painful parts. Victoria twisted both of us. But she couldn't destroy what truly mattered." Before she could respond, the twins approached. Their expressions were unusually serious. "Victoria's not finished," Lily said. "She still has places we can't see." Rose added, "And more children." They ended together. Eleanor pulled them close. "We know, sweethearts. That's why our work is only just beginning." Later that night, with the twins asleep, the adults gathered in the basement, now transformed, into a secure command hub complete with encrypted comms and layered backups. "The Foundation's legal structure is complete," Maxwell said. "I've committed half of my personal wealth to launch it. We'll build recovery centers for the children, legal advocacy teams, and partner with trustworthy research institutions. You'll be going up against powerful forces. Sarah, you warned. Victoria's investors include people who can whisper and make governments listen." "Then we'll speak louder," Maxwell replied, the steel of a businessman returning to his voice. Smarter, relentless. After the meeting ended, Maxwell found himself alone with Eleanor in the kitchen. The emotional distance between them had started to shrink, but years apart couldn't be undone overnight. "I never stopped loving you," he said quietly. "Even when I thought you were gone." Eleanor reached for his hand across the counter. "I never stopped either. That's what made it hurt more. Thinking you might have been part of what she was doing." Their fingers intertwined. A small, silent act of rebuilding. Outside, beneath the soft glow of Michigan stars, the twins sat on the dock, hands joined. They sent silent waves of comfort to children they'd never met, but whose experiences they knew in their bones. 2 years later, the Eleanor Thornton Foundation's headquarters stood proudly in a modern glass building on Chicago's North Side. Its transparent walls and bright spaces were a symbol of its values. Science in the open, not hidden behind secrecy. From his office, Maxwell watched as 8-year-old Lily and Rose worked in a special classroom below. Their dark hair, often braided to match, caught sunlight as they collaborated with 3 other children rescued from Reinhardt sites. Though still identical in appearance, their personalities had begun to diverge. Lily more analytical, Rose more instinctive. Eleanor saw it as a beautiful sign of their individuality developing. "The Zurich board approved our research proposal," Eleanor said as she entered, holding a tablet. Her expression was calm, confident, the woman she used to be returning. "It brings us to 7 countries," Maxwell replied, clearly proud. "Our credibility's finally catching up." Eleanor joined him at the window. "The kids from Chile arrive next week. Their healing abilities are even faster than the twins. Bone regeneration in hours. But their trauma runs deep. Like most of Victoria's test subjects," she added. "Isolated, treated like lab rats instead of children." Maxwell nodded slowly. Their mission had shifted, no longer just about exposure, but about rebuilding what had been broken. The past 2 years had been harder than either expected. Public suspicion about so-called designer kids had required carefully crafted education efforts. Top universities were hesitant to admit how deep the ethical violations had gone. Government agencies labeled parts of the project national security, making evidence harder to access. But they'd also seen real wins. 36 children removed from labs. Specialized care protocols created, now adopted globally. And most importantly, The children were beginning to live normal lives, supported, protected, and understood. Sarah called this morning. Maxwell said. Victoria's final appeal was denied. Eleanor's jaw tightened. House arrest in a luxury chalet isn't justice. But her access to funding and facilities is gone. Maxwell reminded her. The network is unraveling. Thomas's testimony before the UN Ethics Board next month will help even more. Eleanor added. Down below, the twins looked up toward the office, lifting their hands to wave in perfect sync, despite not seeing them arrive. Their sensory awareness had become more manageable over time, still amazing, but no longer overwhelming. That evening, the Thornton family sat together in the garden of their Lake Forest home. Maxwell grilled dinner while Eleanor helped the twins with a science experiment, observing butterfly transformation. The twins were fascinated by it, perhaps because it mirrored their own growth. Dad, Lily called suddenly. We discovered something new. Maxwell walked over, noting their focused expressions, what they called their important face. We can help the others heal, Rose said seriously. Not just physically, Lily continued, but their memories. They finished together. Eleanor knelt beside them. You mean their trauma? The twins nodded together. We can reach them when they're asleep. We show them they're not alone. Teach them what you taught us. Maxwell and Eleanor shared a look, one filled with awe, concern, and something deeper. That same emotional storm they'd carried since the day they realized their children were extraordinary. Later, with the girls asleep, the couple sat on the porch, watching fireflies shimmer across the dark yard. Their relationship had reformed. Minister. Changed, yes, but perhaps stronger for all it had survived. Victoria once told me evolution needs pressure. Eleanor said softly that comfort breeds stagnation and only struggle forces growth. She wasn't completely wrong, Maxwell replied. But she misunderstood something. What's that? That real evolution isn't just about survival or biology, he said, taking her hand. It's about how we grow. In empathy, in love, in how we protect those who can't protect themselves. Eleanor leaned into him, her head on his shoulder, eyes following the tiny lights dancing through the summer air. Victoria tried to control evolution, she whispered, but instead, she released it. In ways she could never predict. In their bedroom, the twins slept, dreaming in synchrony, their minds reaching out into the world. Not to manipulate, not to control, but to build something Victoria could never fabricate, not with all her knowledge. A bond of healing, a network of shared hope, a family not forged by science, but by something far older. The human need to belong.